you look to the second line of trees, just beyond them, you can see another clustering of white lumps, and these are the second herd. There are other cattle dotted throughout the park. So if you go to this first line of trees over here, you'll find there's a tree with yellow foliage, an oak tree, and just above it, in that central zone in the open area, you'll see some more white animals. Now, we've got to break this down into a few different areas. For each of the two herds, you've got about 6 to 8 dominant bulls, and at any given moment, one of those bulls is the most dominant and therefore concerned really only with the females. The least dominant bulls are the ones that have to deal with security, like rival bulls on the outside over here, and you can see right in the middle, in front centre, we've got a bull having a bit of a scrape at the ground. They will do everything they can to avoid having a physical fight, because that carries the greatest risk of injury and wastes the most amount of energy. So having a little bit of attack to the floor allows you to demonstrate your strength and power outside of that scenario of physical contact. We don't affect the age or sex distribution, so it's actually about 50-50 males and females. But not all of the bulls are connected to the two herds. We have already said only 6 to 8 dominant bulls, and you do have a lot of youngsters until the males are about 3 or 4 years old, and at that point they're thrown out of the herd. They have to do some growing up, and they won't enter into the breeding cycle until they're more like 5 or 6. They spend a lot of time in the central zone, known as arena for this fact, because the bulls in the middle there, bachelor herds, are only concerned with fighting and looking after themselves. And this is a significant advantage compared to bulls within the herd, who are constantly burning through energy in all sorts of different ways, and that creates an imbalance. The bulls on the outside, good choices, have the advantage, and that allows them to displace bulls from the interior. Cattle are prey animals, they're herd animals. It only takes one overexcited youngster to set them all off, and they're extremely rapid. But the young males have made very good choices so far. That's exactly what I always wanted to see from them. You'll notice we've got their attention to some degree, and that's exactly what I want to see from them. I want an acknowledgement that we exist. But you will also notice not a whole lot of interest from them, and this is also really important. We're trying really hard not to be good or bad. We want to be neutral in their view, because essentially we're trying to preserve their natural behaviours, and so we can get to observe them and therefore compare them to all of the other animals on the planet. Right, so there are a lot of bulls in the interior. They'll do their best to come in and displace bulls from the herds. If you are thrown out as a bull from the herd, you go try your luck with the other group, because of course you don't want to be off on your own, and again you can see how things will cycle in that way. The last group of males is the retired bulls. They do eventually get fed up with this life. They go generally to high ground to stay out of the way of the main herds, or frequent those slopes a little less often, and they live out the last couple of years in relative peace and harmony. So, how can we tell the difference between the males and the females? Well, luckily, on this left edge, we've got a male and female side by side. If you look right to the centre, we've got a couple of bulls having a go at each other. You might notice straight away they're a bit more grey than white. They're much darker, and that's because they do a lot of attacking the ground. And you don't have to take my word for it. If you look off to the back right on that low area with the 3 spare bulls, you can see the craters absolutely all over the place. Some of them stand out for the dusty, dirty halo of mud around the outside, and they are the pits that have been used most recently. But of course, the dirt doesn't just land on the ground, it covers the participants. So as you look to a group of cattle here, you'll see some of them stand out for the fact that they're more grey than white, and these are very likely going to be the active bulls for this activity. You will also notice some of them have really dark back ends, back legs, and this again disproportionately focuses upon the animals doing the pushing and shoving, because there's a cocktail of hormones and adrenaline that prepares mammals for physical fighting and has the unfortunate side effect of releasing the bowels. Once their back legs are dirty, their tail gets dirty, the flies become annoying, and they'll flick their tail around to keep them at bay. This slaps against their flank and acts like a paintbrush and starts to colour them in. So not only is it a useful tool for identifying the active males, you also get some degree of how active they have been recently as a consequence of this staining. The dead giveaway, of course, when they're stood up like this, is the bulls have a tuft of hair that descends from their tummy and the cows have udders. but you will find it quite difficult to see the udders. They tuck right up and in behind the back legs and almost never descend below the body line. These cattle, like all modern Western breeds, are descended of the ancient aurochs, which was a colossal animal, probably valued for pulling power initially, but all throughout Europe we had horses to fulfill that role, and we could therefore shrink our livestock right down. That made them a little bit easier and safer to handle. It also meant you could get more of them on an area, and they don't need as much food or even as high a quality of food to sustain themselves. They just then haven't been made any bigger since. Modern commercial breeds, through the process of the agricultural revolution, the intensive selection process born out of that process, and also modern technology, industrial revolution, allowing us to support much bigger creatures, has meant that today commercial dairy have a basketball size udder, very often had their legs lengthened to accommodate said udder, and also the bulls. Commercial beef now, about a ton and a half is fairly typical. These bulls only get to about 400 kilos, so hopefully that cements the difference. More akin to dwarf breeds by modern standards, something like maybe Dexter's, but they don't have dwarfism. It's just that they've been left behind in that selection process, and physiologically they resemble medieval cattle, something like maybe 13th century. There are some other differences you can talk about. Probably actually the best example, if we go right in front of us here on this front left corner, we've got this big bull, and then go out to the furthest left, we've got a mature female. Again, you can see the difference in colour. You can see perhaps that the bull is starting to build up weight on his front shoulders, so he comes a little bit wedge-shaped rather than the much more rectangular formation of the females. You'll also see with the bull, he's starting to grow out a mane of long curly hair, which is essentially body armour. When they do lock heads and horns and push and shove, the horns very often make contact on that front zone, and this hair does a really good job of keeping them alive and uninjured. It does have the side effect of obscuring the markings that they've got. So with the females especially, you can really see the speckling, either black or reddy brown, that concentrates down the chin in a sideburn pattern and then spreads out across the face, down the neck, onto the shoulders and even onto the back. In the absence of ear tags, it's the best and most reliable way to identify individuals, and although the bulls do also have it, very often the muck and mud and the longer hair does a good job of hiding it. Last thing I'm going to mention in terms of differences is horns. Now all cattle have horns, the only ones that don't have had it bred out, and they're the polled breeds, or they get them removed for safety in handling and transportation. There is, however, quite a strong difference in shape. And again, if you just take the two most left animals here, lying down, we've got a bull, and you can see that his horn's quite thick. They sweep out sideways, then come straight forward in that classic fighting curve for exactly that reason. Whereas the cow, by contrast, much more slender, much thinner horns. They curve initially towards each other, what's known as a lyre formation, and then eventually they bend back, curve back over the head as well. Now, cattle are matriarchal. It's the females that decide where they go, what they get up to, even down to who gets to breed with who and when. It is not enough to be a dominant bull. You have to be selected and chosen by the females to a really significant degree. And the cows will therefore use their horns to enforce the rules and structure of what's going on. You very often see the mature females putting the young bulls in their place. And you see much more aggression from the cows in relation to food and forage, and that makes sense in the context of having to have the calves and then raise them afterwards. Much more important to them to get the nutrition they need in that way. Right, I've been rambling on quite a lot already. Has anyone got a question they really want to ask? I am going to take us in a moment to talk about the park boundary, we'll talk about management, and I will cover genetics at the end as well.